Victor Harrington sat in his opulent study, the heavy scent of polished mahogany and aged leather enveloping him like a shroud. The walls were adorned with grand portraits of his ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow him as he reflected on his life of wealth and isolation. A massive crystal chandelier hung above, casting shimmering light over the plush furnishings and the vast collection of rare artifacts that spoke of his success. Yet in this room, filled with treasures and adorned with elegance, Victor felt an emptiness that gnawed at his soul. He had amassed a fortune beyond imagination, but with it came an overwhelming loneliness that no amount of money could assuage. He sighed deeply, his fingers tracing the edge of a leather-bound ledger filled with numbers that meant little beyond their monetary value. "What is the point of all this?" he muttered to himself, the echo of his voice bouncing off the ornate walls. Endless wealth, yet not a soul to share it with. His gaze drifted to the window, where the sprawling grounds of his estate lay bathed in the golden light of the afternoon sun. A garden of roses bloomed vibrantly, untouched by the troubles of the world, but even their beauty felt hollow to him. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of town, Clara Thompson was adjusting the collar of her crisp new uniform, the fabric stiff and unfamiliar against her skin. Today marked her first day as a maid at Harrington's mansion, a position that felt both thrilling and daunting. Her heart raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as she thought of her struggling family back in her small hometown. "I have to do this," she whispered to herself, determination replacing her nerves. "For them." Clara took a moment to steady her breath, running her fingers through her hair and smoothing down her uniform once more. The prospect of working for a millionaire was daunting, but she had always been taught the value of hard work and integrity. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Always do your best, Clara. It's the only way to rise above." She stepped out of her small apartment, the weight of her family's expectations resting heavily on her shoulders. Yet she felt a spark of hope. As she approached the grand entrance of Harrington's mansion, the imposing structure loomed before her like a castle from a fairy tale. The intricate architecture and manicured lawns were a sight to behold, and Clara couldn't help but feel a twinge of awe. "I can do this," she reassured herself, pushing the heavy door open and stepping inside. The air was cool and silent, a stark contrast to the bustling streets outside. Clara took in her surroundings, her eyes widening at the sheer opulence of the foyer. Glistening marble floors, ornate chandeliers, and priceless decor filled her vision. It was a world so different from her own, where every detail spoke of wealth and privilege. As she made her way through the house, she noticed the study door slightly ajar. Curiosity piqued, she glanced inside. There she spotted Victor Harrington, seated at his desk, lost in thought. For a moment she hesitated, feeling a sudden wave of shyness wash over her. "Should I knock?" she pondered, but before she could decide, he turned his head, his sharp gaze meeting hers. "Ah, you must be Clara," he said, his voice deep and rich, tinged with an air of authority. "Welcome. Please, come in." Clara stepped inside, heart pounding. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I'm excited to start my work here." Victor studied her for a moment, his expression inscrutable. "I hope you'll find it to your liking. It can be quite lonely in these walls, but perhaps you'll bring some life to this place." Clara offered a small smile, sensing an underlying sadness in his words. "I'll do my best, sir. I promise." Unbeknownst to Clara, Victor had already devised a plan to test her integrity. He had grown tired of the deceitful people who surrounded him and longed to find someone truly trustworthy. He casually left his safe open, its contents a dazzling array of jewels and stacks of cash, gleaming temptingly in the dim light. As he listened from behind the curtain, Victor's heart raced. Would she take a single coin? Would she be like the others? The moments stretched into an eternity, and as Clara busied herself with dusting the shelves, he felt a mix of hope and trepidation. In that moment, he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, Clara could be the breath of fresh air he had been yearning for. And thus, the intricate dance of trust and temptation began, with both unaware of the profound impact this day would have on their lives. Clara stepped into the study, the heavy oak door creaking slightly as it swung open. The room was a symphony of luxury, every corner adorned. with rich fabrics and intricate artwork that spoke volumes of Victor Harrington's wealth. But it was the safe that drew her attention, a magnificent piece, its door ajar, revealing a treasure trove of glittering jewels and stacks of cash. Her heart raced at the sight, a mix of awe and dread flooding her senses. As she approached the safe, memories of her family's struggles danced in her mind. The thought of her mother's tired eyes and her younger siblings. Hopes weighed heavily on her conscience. Clara's fingers brushed against the cool metal of the safe's door, and she took a deep breath, trying to quell the temptation that surged within her. What if, she thought, envisioning a life transformed by a single act of greed? But the voice of her upbringing echoed louder, reminding her of the values instilled in her: honesty, integrity, loyalty. No, she murmured to herself, shaking her head as if to dispel the thoughts. This isn't mine. I can't take what doesn't belong to me. Summoning her courage, Clara turned away from the dazzling sight, her resolve unshaken. She had come to this mansion to work, not to steal. Clara's footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor as she made her way toward the study door, her mind racing with the implications of what she had just witnessed. She knew she had to inform Victor. She couldn't let the moment of weakness define her, nor could she allow the temptation to linger. She squared her shoulders, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, and stepped back into the hall. Victor Harrington watched from his concealed spot behind the curtain, his heart pounding in his chest. He had expected to see Clara succumb to the allure of wealth, but instead she had chosen the path of honor. A smile crept onto his lips, a mix of relief and admiration. He was intrigued by her character, the way she fought against the current of temptation. He emerged from his hiding place, his resolve hardening. It was time to reveal himself. "Clara," he called out, his voice smooth yet commanding as he stepped into view. She turned startled, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Mr. Harrington, I was just coming to find you," she stammered, glancing back at the open safe, the treasure still glimmering in her mind's eye. "I saw everything," he said, his gaze steady on hers. "You showed remarkable integrity just now. Most would have taken the opportunity without a second thought." Clara's heart raced, not with fear, but with a sense of pride in her choice. "I couldn't do that, sir. It's not right to take what doesn't belong to me," she replied, her voice firm. Victor stepped closer, studying her with newfound respect. "You've impressed me, Clara. Honesty is a rare quality in this world, especially in my circles." His expression softened, revealing a glimpse of the man behind the millionaire facade. "I'd like to reward your integrity. How does a bonus sound?" Her eyes widened in disbelief. "A bonus? But I only did what was right," she protested, feeling a mix of emotions swirling within her. "Precisely," he said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "And that deserves recognition. You're not just a maid to me. You've shown that you have principles that matter. You've given me hope that not everyone is driven by greed." Clara felt a warmth spread through her, mixed with surprise. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I appreciate it, but I truly believe that honesty is its own reward." Victor nodded, a newfound respect blossoming between them. "Perhaps we could learn from each other, Clara. I've spent too long surrounded by people who only seek to exploit what I have. You've reminded me that there are still good people in this world." She smiled, her heart swelling at his words. In that moment, a bridge formed between their two worlds, his gilded cage of wealth and her humble beginnings. It was a connection built on mutual respect, and as Clara turned to return to her chores, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this job would be more than just a means to support her family. It could also lead to something profound, a friendship forged in the fires of integrity and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, the mansion began to feel less like a gilded cage to Clara and more like a sanctuary of sorts, one filled with the sounds of laughter and the warmth of shared stories. Victor, with his enigmatic charm and hidden vulnerabilities, slowly revealed pieces of himself to her. One afternoon, while they were seated in the sun-drenched kitchen, a quiet moment stretched between them, punctuated only by the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to have a normal life?" Victor asked, breaking the silence. His voice held a hint of wistfulness, as if he was reminiscing about a memory long buried. Clara, wiping down the counter, paused and turned to face him. Normal, she echoed, a small smile creeping onto her face. I suppose that's a relative term. What's normal for one might be chaos for another. Victor chuckled softly, his eyes glinting with an uncharacteristic lightness. I suppose you're right, but I think I've missed out on something fundamental. Friends who share a meal, laughter that rings out in the halls. I've forgotten what that feels like. Clara leaned against the counter, curiosity piqued. What about your family? Surely you must have someone? He shook his head, a shadow passing over his features. My family is complicated. Wealth has a way of creating walls, isolating instead of uniting. It's easier to trust no one than to risk being hurt. Clara could sense the weight of his words, the burden of solitude that he carried. I understand that, she replied softly. My family struggles, but we're there for each other. We might not have much, but we have each other, and that's what counts. Victor's gaze softened, and for a moment, Clara saw a flicker of longing in his eyes. What do you dream of, Clara? Beyond this mansion and the immediate tasks at hand? Taking a deep breath, Clara felt her heart swell with a mix of hope and trepidation. I dream of a better life for my family. A small business, maybe. A bakery. My mother used to bake the most wonderful bread. If I could bring that joy to our community, it would mean everything to me. Victor leaned forward, intrigued. A bakery? That sounds wonderful. What's stopping you? She hesitated, running a hand through her hair. Funding, mainly. It's hard to get a loan when you don't have any collateral, and I can't bear the thought of failing them. His expression shifted, a flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. If you had the chance, would you take it? Of course, she replied, her voice unwavering. I'd do anything for them. Victor smiled, a genuine expression that warmed Clara's heart. Perhaps one day I can help you with that dream. The conversation lingered in the air, a promise unspoken yet palpable, binding them in a newfound understanding. As the days rolled on, Clara noticed Victor's reliance on her deepening. It wasn't just about cleaning or cooking anymore. He confided in her about his business, his fears, and the people who surrounded him. One evening, Victor stood in the study, his brow furrowed as he reviewed documents spread across the desk. Clara, passing by, noticed his tension. Is everything all right? She asked gently, stepping into the room. He glanced up, his eyes clouded with concern. It's just business. Sometimes I wonder if I can truly trust those I work with. Clara stepped closer, her heart aching for him. You've built this empire, Victor, but it's okay to be cautious. Trust is a fragile thing. He nodded slowly, appreciating her insight. You're right. I just wish I knew who to trust. So many have come and gone, and I find myself more alone than ever. Maybe it's less about finding someone to trust and more about being open to the right people, she suggested, her voice soft yet firm. Victor regarded her thoughtfully, a newfound respect shining in his gaze. You're wise beyond your years, Clara. Perhaps that's why I feel drawn to you. It's refreshing to speak without pretense. Their eyes locked, and Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. In that moment, the rigid boundaries of employer and employee began to blur, revealing something deeper, an unspoken bond forged through vulnerability and honesty. As they stood together in the flickering candlelight of the study, the air thick with possibilities, Clara sensed that their lives were intertwining in ways neither of them could fully comprehend. She had come to this mansion seeking a job, but perhaps she was finding something far more significant, a connection that transcended their disparate worlds. As Clara stood in the grand study, the sunlight streaming through the tall windows illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air. She had begun to feel a sense of belonging in the opulent mansion, a stark contrast to her humble beginnings. Yet the looming shadow of Victor's recent financial troubles hung over her like a dark cloud. She had discovered the troubling news about Victor's business partner, a man she had only heard whispers about, but the implications were dire. She could see the worry etched on Victor's face during their conversations, his usually vibrant eyes clouded with concern. Clara, Victor said, his voice low and heavy as he leaned against the edge of his ornate desk. "I don't know what to do. This betrayal could ruin everything I've worked for." His hands fidgeted with a silver pen, twisting it nervously as if it were a lifeline. Clara took a deep breath, summoning her courage. "You need to confront him, Victor. You can't let him take advantage of you like this. You have to gather evidence. Make it clear that you won't stand for his deceit." Victor looked up, surprised by her assertiveness. "You think I should confront him directly? What if he retaliates? He has connections, people who could make this situation worse." "Sometimes," Clara replied, her voice steady, "the only way to deal with a bully is to stand up to them. You have the truth on your side. If we work together, we can expose him. You're not alone in this." A flicker of hope ignited in Victor's eyes. "You truly believe we can do this?" Clara nodded, her determination palpable. "I know we can. Let's gather the evidence and make a plan. You're not just a millionaire. You're a person with a right to defend what's yours." Victor straightened, the weight of her words resonating deeply within him. "You're right, Clara. I've been so consumed by fear that I almost forgot how to fight back. Let's do this." As they began to strategize, Clara felt a warmth growing between them, a partnership forged in shared purpose. They spent hours poring over documents, analyzing contracts, and uncovering discrepancies that could expose the treachery. With each passing minute, Clara felt herself becoming more invested in Victor's plight, their bond strengthening with each revelation. "Look at this," Clara exclaimed, pointing to a line in a contract that had previously slipped under Victor's radar. "This clause clearly states that he has no right to the profits from the last project. He's been pocketing money that doesn't belong to him." Victor leaned closer, excitement mingling with disbelief. "If we can present this to the board, it could turn the tide in my favor. This is brilliant, Clara." "I just want to help," she said, a modest smile spreading across her face. Their collaboration continued over the next few days, and with each success, they found themselves sharing more than just professional moments. Clara began to witness glimpses of Victor's vulnerability, his laughter echoing through the halls as they joked about their findings. He shared stories of his childhood, his dreams, and the loneliness that wealth had brought him. "I never realized how isolating this life could be," Victor confessed one evening, a hint of sadness in his voice. "I've surrounded myself with people who only see the money, not the man behind it. You see me, Clara, and I'm grateful for that." Clara felt her heart swell at his words. "You're more than just your wealth, Victor. You have a kind heart, and that's what truly matters." As they delved deeper into the investigation, Clara's confidence blossomed. Victor began to rely on her intuition, her insights proving invaluable. She felt a sense of purpose that she hadn't experienced before, and with it came an unexpected friendship. One evening as they sat together in the study, exhausted but exhilarated from a long day of work, Victor turned to her, a serious look on his face. "Clara, I want you to know that you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. Your loyalty, your honesty, it's refreshing. I wish I could give you more than just a job." Clara met his gaze, her heart racing. "You already have, Victor. You've given me the chance to be part of something meaningful." Their eyes locked, an understanding passing between them that felt deeper than words. It was a moment of connection, a shared acknowledgement of the paths they had walked, and the uncharted territory they were beginning to navigate together. As they continued to unravel the threads of deceit, Clara sensed that their partnership was evolving, becoming something neither of them had anticipated. She was no longer just a maid in a mansion. She was a confidant in Victor's life, and he was becoming more than just her employer. They were two souls intertwined by circumstance, forging a bond that would be tested in ways neither could foresee. Clara stood in the grand dining room, a soft glow from the crystal chandelier, casting warm light over the polished mahogany table. Today was different. There was a palpable sense of triumph in the air, a celebration of their recent victory over the betrayal that had threatened Victor's empire. She felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nerves as she prepared to share her story with Victor, who was seated across from her, an appreciative smile on his face. "Clara," he began, his voice smooth and inviting, "I still can't believe how you managed to turn that situation around. Your instincts were spot on." Thank you, Victor, she replied, a hint of shyness creeping into her tone. But it was a team effort. You trusted me enough to listen. Victor leaned back, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. Trust is hard to come by in my world. You've changed that for me. Clara's heart warmed at his words. I've had my share of struggles, you know. Growing up, things were never easy for my family. I often had to watch my parents work tirelessly just to keep food on the table. Tell me more, Victor encouraged, his eyes intent on hers, eager to understand the woman who had become more than just a maid in his eyes. I remember one winter when we didn't have enough money for heating. My father would burn old furniture to keep us warm, and my mother would always make sure we had something to eat, even if it was just a simple soup. It was tough, but it taught me the value of hard work and resilience. She explained, her voice steady despite the memories that threatened to resurface. Victor's gaze softened and he leaned forward, captivated by her story. And now, what do you hope for your family? Clara took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. I want to open a small bakery back home. My mother taught me how to bake, and I've always dreamed of sharing those recipes with others. I want to create a place where people can gather, enjoy good food, and find warmth, just like my home. That sounds beautiful, Victor said earnestly. You deserve that chance. Your passion is inspiring. Clara felt a surge of hope as Victor spoke. Do you really think so? I know so, he replied, his voice firm. In fact, I want to help you. I've been thinking about investing in your bakery. It could be a great opportunity for both of us. Clara's eyes widened in disbelief. Victor, you don't have to do that. I appreciate the offer, but… No buts, he interrupted gently. You've shown me what true integrity looks like. It's time I give back. You could use the funds to get started, and I could use the joy of seeing someone succeed. I don't know what to say, she stammered, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, Victor. This means the world to me and my family. Just promise me you'll make the best pastries, he teased, a playful grin returning to his face. I will, Clara laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. They shared an infectious moment of laughter, the connection between them growing deeper, a bond forged by shared struggles and newfound hopes. However, just as the warmth of their conversation enveloped them, the tranquility was shattered by the sharp sound of Victor's phone vibrating on the table. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting from joy to concern. It's an unknown number, he murmured, hesitating before answering. Victor? Clara asked, sensing the change in his demeanor. Hello? Victor's voice was steady, but Clara could see the tension in his jaw. A silence fell over the room as he listened, his brows furrowing with each passing second. What do you mean by that? Clara leaned in closer, her heart racing. What's going on? Victor ended the call abruptly, his face pale. I need to process this, he stammered, visibly shaken. What did they say? Clara pressed, concern flooding her voice. They threatened me, Victor replied, his eyes darkening with unease. They know things from my past that I thought were buried. Clara's heart sank as she realized the weight of his words. The newfound peace they had begun to build was now under threat, and in that moment, she understood that the shadows of Victor's past were not just his alone to bear. Victor, we'll face this together, she said firmly, her resolve echoing in the quiet room. You're not alone in this. He looked at her, and for the first time, Clara could see the fear in his eyes. I don't want to drag you into my darkness. But I'm already here, she insisted, and I won't leave you to fight this battle on your own. Victor nodded slowly, the weight of the world resting heavily on his shoulders as they both braced for the storm that was about to unfold. Victor and Clara stood in the dim light of the study, the air thick with tension as the weight of the anonymous threat loomed over them. The ornate decor that once felt like a protective barrier now felt suffocating. Victor, his brow furrowed in concentration, paced the room, his footsteps echoing against the polished marble floor. Clara, leaning against the doorframe, watched him with a mix of concern and determination. We need to find out who sent that note, Clara said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. If they know about your past, they might be trying to manipulate you. Victor stopped, turning to face her, his expression a blend of admiration and dread. I never wanted to drag you into my world, Clara. You deserve better. Maybe I do, she replied, pushing off the doorframe and taking a step closer to him. But I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone. We've faced worse together. We can figure this out. He studied her for a moment, the flicker of hope in her eyes igniting something within him. All right, he conceded, but we need to be cautious. Whoever is behind this might have more influence than we realize. Clara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Let's start by looking into anyone who might have a motive to hurt you. You mentioned your business partner, Marsden. Is there a chance he could be involved? Victor hesitated, recalling the recent betrayal. It's possible. He has a lot to gain if I'm taken down. But there are others, people I thought were friends who might have turned. Then let's gather information, Clara suggested. We can start by going through your old correspondence and meeting some of your contacts. Maybe we'll find a lead. Victor's lips curled into a hesitant smile. You really are remarkable, Clara. I'm lucky to have you by my side. Lucky? Or you just needed a maid who can think on her feet, she teased, lightening the mood. He chuckled, the sound of brief respite in the storm brewing around them. Perhaps a bit of both. As they began to sift through Victor's files, Clara's fingers brushed against a worn, leather-bound book. Curious, she opened it, revealing a collection of old photographs and letters. The first few pages depicted a younger Victor at various business events, surrounded by people who seemed to adore him. But as she turned the pages, her heart raced at the sight of a familiar face in one of the photographs, her mother, beaming beside Victor at an event from decades past. Victor! Clara exclaimed, her voice trembling with confusion. Look at this! He leaned over her shoulder, his brows knitting together as he took in the image. That's your mother. Yes. How is she connected to you? Clara's heart pounded in her chest. What does this mean? Victor's expression shifted from curiosity to shock. I had no idea. I don't remember her from that time, but this could explain a lot. He flipped through the pages frantically, revealing more images that chronicled a time when their lives were inexplicably intertwined. As Clara continued to sift through the pages, she found a letter addressed to Victor, penned in her mother's elegant handwriting. She wrote to you? Clara whispered, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity flooding her voice. I don't know what to say, Victor stammered, absorbing the weight of the revelation. This changes everything. It does, Clara agreed, her mind racing. If my mother knew you, there's a chance she could have known about your past, your secrets. Perhaps she even warned you. Or perhaps I was a fool, blinded by ambition, Victor interjected, his voice heavy with regret. I never connected the dots. I never thought my past would come back to haunt me like this. They stood in silence, the implications of the discovery swirling around them like a storm. Their fates had been intertwined long before they had met, and now, as they stood on the precipice of revelation, they faced a truth more profound than either had anticipated. Whatever happens next, we face it together, Clara declared, her resolve solidifying. We need to understand the whole story before we make any moves. Victor nodded, a new determination igniting within him. Together, then, we'll uncover the truth behind this threat and the secrets that threaten to tear us apart. As they resumed their search, the bond between them deepened, strengthened by the shared burden of their intertwined past. The road ahead was uncertain, but they would navigate it side by side, ready to confront whatever shadows lay ahead.